Hello and welcome back to our channel. So today we're going to have another car chat and we're going to talk about panic attacks and how to break the panic attack cycle for good. So first, let's talk about a panic attack versus an anxiety attack, because both terms tend to be used interchangeably and there's definitely some really important differences. So first, let's talk about an anxiety attack. An anxiety attack is something that typically gradually occurs. It can last hours, days, weeks, or longer. It can last months as well. Typically can have some kind of specific trigger, whether it's a buildup of stress or a specific situation or whatever. Symptoms can definitely be uncomfortable and unpleasant, but I would say the intensity is more on the mild end of the spectrum. A panic attack can happen without any known trigger, and it can come completely out of the blue. So panic attacks typically only last a matter of minutes before it's going to peak. Symptoms are like 10 out of 10, 20 out of 10. You can feel like you're literally dying. And when these come on, it's because of the amount of adrenaline that's released during these panic attacks. So again, they're very short-lived, and it's impossible for them to last very long because adrenaline is finite. So that's the difference. Symptoms of a panic attack include sense of impending doom or danger. I almost compare it like how people get these like migraine auras or whatever it is, and you kind of have this just feeling coming on where you're like something bad's happening or is about to happen. I can't really pinpoint it, but it's just this like deep sense of impending doom. Fear of loss of control, going crazy or dying, a rapid pounding heart rate, that can come with those skipped heartbeats as well, those PVCs, sweating, trembling, shaking, shortness of breath or tightness in your throat, chills, hot flashes, nausea, abdominal cramping, chest pain, headache, dizziness, lightheadedness, feeling faint or like you're going to pass out, numbness or tingling sensation, feelings of unreality or detachment, so that DPDR. So many more symptoms. That's just a list that I got from the Mayo Clinic, I believe. Alright, so why do these panic attacks happen? Basically, what happens is our body has this stress threshold. Typically, that's invisible, at least in the very beginning, until we have this first panic attack or these other symptoms that can occur. And our body just reaches this limit. So maybe let's not talk about necessarily trauma, because trauma can cause it too. It doesn't matter if trauma is what's causes for you, because you can still recover just like anybody else. But let's talk about like general stress buildup, because that's really common, right? So maybe that's emotional stress. Maybe we're stuck in these unproductive thought patterns. Maybe it's like rumination or just like stress in general, right? Or maybe it's like work stress. Maybe you're traveling all the time. Maybe you're like a single or a stay-at-home mom or a single mom or something, right? You've got these kids you're taking care of 24/7. But anyway, so good stress, bad stress, it can add up and it just starts to tax our nervous system. And so eventually our body's built-in alarm system, our stress response essentially, is going to start sending us these symptoms. So maybe that is, in the beginning something more mild. It's just like some generalized anxiety, or it's like maybe like a tightness in your throat or your neck a little bit. I had that big time, like that hands around your throat type feeling. Maybe it's tension, whatever, right? We get these signals and it's just our body's way of saying, hey, let's slow down a little bit. We're going a little bit too hard here. Let's just pump the brakes. But what can happen, and the problem that can occur here, is that we start fearing the panic attacks. We fear when the next one's going to come, if it's going to come, and this fear can become so intense, and rightfully so, at least from like a feeling standpoint, right? It's not dangerous, but it sure feels that way. And we can start avoiding situations where we think panic attacks can come. So avoidance is going to reinforce to our brains that we are in danger. Even though we're not actually in danger, even that perceived danger is going to tell your brain, like, keep sending the adrenaline, keep that stress response turned on. And the avoidance is going to begin to trap us into a smaller and smaller bubble. And from here, agoraphobia can form. And agoraphobia is basically where, you're not leaving your house, essentially. You're not going anywhere because you're not scared necessarily of the outside. We're not scared of the trees. We're not scared of groceries on the shelves, right? It's the fear of how you're going to feel in those situations. And so when you start to make your bubble smaller and smaller, suddenly now for me, I remember I would sit in the backyard when I would try to just get out of the house, and I would go sit in a lawn chair and I'd feel okay, and then boom, that impending doom sort of feeling would come on. The DPDR would get even stronger, and next thing you know, I am running inside. Typically I would go and I would sit in my bathroom. That was like my safe space, and I would just go through the panic attack. Okay, so when we are waiting for that next panic attack, we can become hyper-focused on our symptoms. And once we feel the onset of an attack coming on, we can add fear, focus, we can try to escape, and basically it just adds more adrenaline, more stress hormones, even further reinforcing. So you get the point, it's a super vicious cycle. So I know for me, for example, my anxiety, my panic was all very symptom based, because for me, I was, stressing myself out. I started having these panic attacks. I didn't know what they were. I did not even believe that they were panic attacks. I didn't realize how intense anxiety can feel. And so maybe I would start to get this like faint feeling, or I would start to get this kind of like DPDR, like, whoa, why is everything slowing down? What's happening right now? Type of feeling. And then I would focus. And then now I'm like, oh my God, am I breathing? Am I able to breathe? I feel like I can't breathe. And it would just turn into this very vicious cycle. So the important question here, and probably what you're wanting to hear, because if you're going through panic attacks, you probably know everything that I just said, you're like dealing with it on a daily basis. So how do you get your life back and break this cycle for good? So I'm gonna put this into 4 steps here. Number 1 is educating yourself on panic attacks and anxiety, and basically what it can do to your body. So this is so important because I know for me, I spent months and months and months going to doctor after doctor. And then once I kind of finally was like, okay, maybe it's anxiety, I spent months and months and months wondering, well, am I different? Am I going to be like this forever? Okay, maybe it's anxiety, but the meds aren't working, nothing's working, blah, blah, blah. You get the point. So really understanding how much of an impact anxiety can have on our system, really understanding what the stress response is and what it does and how it can affect like every organ in our body basically. And once you start to understand that, you start to realize like, okay, maybe this really is anxiety. Maybe this really is curable if my body can just kind of like desensitize. So number 2, and going back to number 1 really quick. So I'm going to post a ton on this channel trying to just educate you about anxiety, about recovery, of course, but a big part of that is just learning about anxiety, learning about like how much it truly does affect your body. So I will post a link in this video in the description. Follow that link, join our free Facebook group because we're going to post a lot about recovery on there as well. And you can also download the Ideal Response, which I'll talk about on number 2 here, and that's going to be a free download, and that's exactly how you can desensitize your nervous system. So, number 2, learning the ideal response to desensitize your nervous system. Basically, this response is an acronym that we coined, and it goes through the way to respond to your symptoms and to your thoughts. That's so important. Symptoms, thoughts, anything that's caused by anxiety, essentially. It teaches you how to respond to it in a way that's going to tell your body like you're safe, we can calm down. This response is not going to take away the symptoms or the panic attack in that moment. That's not what it's designed to do. That's what coping mechanisms are for, and really we don't subscribe to that because it's just not long-term freedom. So check out the Ideal Response, and again, we'll talk a lot about that on this channel. There's plenty of videos just for that. Number 3 is not adding fear to fear. So if you read the book Hope and Help for Your Nerves by Claire Weekes, she calls it first fear and second fear. So first fear is going to be that initial like boom, symptoms are coming, panic attacks coming. You can't control first fear. It is what it is. 2 is not adding the second fear. So basically first fear would be like, holy moly, I'm gonna pass out, I feel unreal, I feel like everything's spinning, I got tunnel vision, what the heck's going on? Second fear would be, what the heck's going on? Am I gonna die? What's happening? Am I having a stroke? Am I having a heart attack? Why is my arm numb? Why is my arm tingling? Is it my left arm? I'm gonna start Googling stroke symptoms, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's second fear. Don't do that. Whenever first fear hits, acknowledge it. Okay, this is normal, this is adrenaline, this is what my body's designed to feel in this situation, that's all right. Ideal response, let's disarm this. And then on top of that, for number 3 is not trying to escape symptoms. So again, ideal response is not there to take away the symptoms. It's not designed for them to disappear. We're not trying to run from our symptoms. We're trying to experience our symptoms in the healthiest way possible and process them in the healthiest way possible. So number 3, the only way out is through. This one's huge. And as humans, like, we don't want to feel pain, emotional, physical, like any form of pain, right? So I understand that this is really hard to get through. This is hard to, embrace, which is the E in the ideal response. I totally get that. But as you widen your bubble and you get into uncomfortable situations, frankly, where you might be having panic attacks in the places that you've been fearing is where your recovery lies. So is that difficult? Yes, it is. But if you've been stuck in this for a long time, you've likely tried pretty much everything else, and you understand that, if you're watching this video, you probably understand that stuff has not worked for you yet. So, basically having healthy exposure and getting in those situations, getting out of those situations alive and realizing, that sucked. I had a panic attack in Target or whatever, right? And that was awful, but I did it. But I had a panic attack while I was checking out my groceries, and they probably didn't even notice, even though internally I was going crazy. But it's okay, and I can get through it. So that goes to number 4, which is confidence is going to grow over time. And as you get more confident and realize, like, yeah, these symptoms are terrible, like, they suck, okay? I'm not gonna, sugarcoat it. But you can get through it. And over time, you'll realize, I drove, at first maybe it's to the mailbox and I had a panic attack and I survived. And then it was, I drove to the grocery store and I had a panic attack and I survived. And then I drove on the interstate and I had a panic attack and I survived. And now suddenly that mailbox is nothing, right? That's cake because you did it on the interstate. And so it kind of becomes this ripple effect, right? And it builds on each other. So confidence is a huge one. And it takes those uncomfortable situations to gain confidence. So yeah, this is not a easy process as far as recovery goes, but it is very simple. So I would say getting in the mindset that this is a marathon, this is not a sprint, there is no quick fix or easy way out of this, but you are very capable, and as you get out of this, you're going to be such a stronger person, you're going to be more resilient, and frankly, if you can get through this, you can pretty much get through anything, because again, I know how hard it is. So I hope this video helped. Please put any questions that you have in the comments and I can answer them. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel and you can get updates on videos. We post them definitely at least a video a week. We're trying to get out multiple videos a week. And if you haven't joined our Facebook group, make sure you click the link in the description and join our group so that we can talk to you kind of more one-on-one as well. So I hope you have a great day.